Welcome to Millennials in the Workforce, presented by Group 6. Today we're going to walk through recommended HR policies and guidelines that your organization should consider to attract and retain candidates from the next generation. Today's presentation will lean heavily on Don Tapscott's book, Grown Up Digital. Like all generations, millennials carry a unique set of traits and qualities. Millennials have come to expect a certain culture in the workplace, a culture that embraces diversity, provides a healthy work-life balance, and incorporates a reward-based system. Tapscott makes convincing arguments about the need to overhaul current management structures and institute structures tailored for millennials. He says that, as employees and managers, the next generation is approaching work collaboratively, collapsing the rigid hierarchy and forcing organizations to rethink how they recruit, compensate, develop, and supervise talent. For a company to continue to thrive and expand, it must be willing to continually evolve in every facet of the business, from development of technology to the overall management of their employees. Essentially, to compete for top talented millennial performers, you'll need to initiate, engage, collaborate, and evolve as a company. Today's presentation will make some specific policy recommendations to your HR organization, ensuring that your organization is able to adapt to the sea change. Before we get into the presentation, let's meet our team. The team members that collaborated on this project come from varied backgrounds, bringing with them diverse experiences in a diverse and multi-generational workplace. Nathan works in finance for Canada's largest coffee chain, Tim Hortons. John is on sabbatical from his work doing business development and marketing for software companies. Amanda works at American Home Shield, a ServiceMaster brand. Robert works for the biotechnology company Bayer Crop Science as a quality manager for the soybean business. And Casey is a sales operations analyst at Microport Orthopedics. Let's review our plan for today. We'll start by introducing you to millennials and some basic facts about their generation, then move into specific policy recommendations, including how to recruit and keep millennials, some guidelines on how they like to work, their preferred work tools, and some of the challenges that you might face when your millennial new hires encounter your more traditional workforce. We'll wrap things up by talking about how successful management of millennials can help your organization win, and then we'll do a recap of everything. Let's get started. Let's take a look at the millennials as a component of our overall population. So here we've got all of U.S. society. We have the baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964, with about 77 million members. We have the Gen Xers, which I come at the tail end of, born from 1965 through 1976, with about 44 million members. Skipping a generation, we have Gen Next, which Tapscott categorizes as being born from 98 through 2008, and we've got about 40 million of those. And finally, we've got this big group born between 1977 and 1977, what we call Generation Y, the next generation, or millennials, the focus of today's presentation. We'll be using all of those terms interchangeably today. There's about 81 million of these net geners out there. Our society hasn't had a single generation making up this big a percentage of our population in quite some time. As you can see, the millennial generation is bigger than the baby boomer generation, which was previously the biggest generation in the U.S. Millennials are almost as big as Gen Xers and Generation Next combined. Just as the baby boomers shaped their workforce based on their sheer size, the millennial generation will do the same. Now that we've established where millennials fit into the overall fabric of our society, let's talk about some of the basic attributes and attitudes of their generation. Multitasking, networking, trophies, and sharing. Next geners seem to have both the ability and the enabling technology to balance multiple tasks at once. Whether it's talking on the phone and reading emails, or eating lunch and surfing the web, millennials have allowed multitasking to dominate their day-to-day life. Millennials have grown to think it's their right to change career paths several times throughout their life. They've seen what it's like to live in a boom and bust economy, and they're fine with a career that takes similar twists and turns. Millennials are also a product of the ribbon or trophy society, where awards are given not to just the winner but to all participants. Millennials are used to, expect, and may even crave this immediate positive feedback. You could argue that millennials have more access to information than prior generations, and that this access to information enables career plans that are aspirational, ambitious, and well thought out, though a lack of real-life experience may result in a shock when their plans encounter the realities of working life. Millennials seem to have a special ability to network, and they don't hesitate to use this to their advantage. Millennials believe that to climb the modern-day corporate ladder, they must have as many people as possible in their corner. Finally, millennials want to be heard. Given their access to social media platforms, sharing ideas and information has never been easier. With the ever-increasing access to information, all members of a business are more informed than ever about acceptable business practices. Organizations are striving to maintain fair and equal opportunity, and as such, policies surrounding the basic values, respect, integrity, honesty, and well-being should be evident in HR guidelines. Policies for harassment, misconduct, and breaches should be clear, direct, and leave no room for interpretation. Another strong focus for HR revolves around life outside of work as well as benefits and health management. Companies need to do all they can to take care of the people that represent their company. One popular program is called the 40-60-80 policy. This policy offers health care to employees that work 40%, 60%, or 80% of a full work week. The benefit for the traditional workforce is to allow for more family time while still receiving full health coverage, while net Jenners might have the ability to travel more and seek different ventures without having to be tied down to a 40-plus hour a week job. To effectively recruit millennials, you'll first need to assess how your company treats its employees. The most effective tool for recruiting in a net gen-driven labor force is positive word of mouth from current and past employees. If an employee thinks that they were mistreated, they would most likely not recommend you to qualified friends and colleagues. Companies advertising their values and business practices are also more likely to get the recruits that they want. Compared to previous generations of job seekers, prospective millennial employees have more access to company information, so companies now have to work harder to maintain a positive business image. NetGenners actively use tools like Glassdoor and LinkedIn to discuss, review, and compare companies' core value systems. Recruiting is only half the battle, though. You've still got to keep those employees that you fought so hard to get. With millennials changing jobs in excess of 10 times during their working lifetime, it's become ever more difficult to keep employees motivated, compensated, and satisfied. The implementation of retention-driven business practices, such as development, compensating good performance, and continuous feedback have proven to be successful in improving motivation and investment. The key word here for HR organizations is flexibility. Flexible benefits, flexible balancing, flexible PTO policies. If you want to keep good people, make sure they have a favorable work-life balance. An employee that's satisfied with their life overall is going to give you better performance than one who's miserable because they're chained to their desk. Speaking of being chained to their desk, NetGenners don't feel connected to their desk in the same way that previous generations may have. They want the ability to work in a variety of remote locations, like at home, or maybe even when they're on vacation. Recognize when your employees have done something great. Remember, this generation is used to getting trophies. Use that to your advantage. Finally, show your team that you care about the world in the same way that they do, and that you take responsibility for making changes in society. Consider providing matching donations to popular causes or compensating employees for time spent volunteering. Millennials want to have freedom when it comes to work, and a 9-to-5 day just isn't appealing to many people under the age of 40. To retain younger employees, consider offering multiple scheduling options like working from home one Friday a month or working from home every other week. Also, performance reviews should be structured towards yearly goals and not focus specifically on time spent working in an office. In the end, no matter whether the company chooses to stay in the office or to cyber commute, the company should provide devices or reimbursement for employee purchase devices for work that's done at home. Also, avoid a mundane workspace. Many people don't want to come into work and sit in a cube farm for 40 hours a week. Open office environments are essential for keeping your workforce interested and sane. Also, consider offering more than one way to reach the 40-hour mark for a full work week. If an employee is better suited to 4 days a week at 10 hours a day, then offer them that option. To be successful, millennials will need the right tools to work in their generational style. For instance, to be able to work from home or on the road, a work-specific laptop is essential. There will be times when a NetGener may need to change their scenery in order to stay focused. Sitting in one spot for hours on end is no way for a NetGener to stay excited about working. While less important than a laptop, NetGeners might also benefit from having tablets or other mobile devices provided by their company. Now, we know that there will be some overlap in quite a few years where you've got traditional employees accustomed to a certain way of doing things and members of the NetGen that have a different approach. As HR professionals, you'll need to recognize these differing points of view. Tapscott evaluates what he calls the 8 net generation norms, and there are 2 norms that are directly applicable to how we should consider our next-gen workforce. They are, first, the net generation wants entertainment and play in their work, education, and social life. And second, the net generation has a need for speed. In other words, gone are the days of tradition and customs. With information at the tips of their fingers, NetGeners want to be able to enjoy every moment of their lives and be entertained and informed at all times. These millennials are more influenced by the media and friends than maybe by traditional customs. Also, the net generation has what some perceive as a lack of patience and a demand for instant satisfaction. They seem to want solutions, information, connections, and possibly promotions at the click of a button. While some generations may see an organization and its opportunities as a hierarchical ladder, millennials are more likely to see things as a collaborative matrix. The hierarchical ladder has less application in a world where people change companies more than 10 times during their career. There's now less focus on gaining the next big promotion and more focus on finding the best job available. The idea of relocating and switching job functions are all understood as commonplace amongst the net generation. Loyalty to a company isn't as highly coveted as it was 50 years ago. NetGeners feel no obligation to stay with a company that might leave them in a stagnant position. In order for the younger generation to feel as though they're continuously being challenged, they will often make horizontal shifts into different areas or industries. Collaborative matrices put more emphasis on output and less on traditional hierarchical teams. The collaborative matrix aims to blur the lines between managers and subordinates and instead makes non-traditional teams that are focused on maximizing output. Professionals are able to work both vertically and horizontally within the organization, and oftentimes with a cross-functional team that's able to utilize more of a company's resources. The collaborative matrix is a great business model for NetGeners who are encouraged to think different and solve issues applying non-traditional methods. In order for your entire organization to embrace the corporate culture, which will in turn encourage employee fulfillment, it's essential to appreciate and maintain a work environment for all generations. Ensure that there are appropriate workspaces for traditional and non-traditional employees. Examples you might consider would be keeping several large open conference rooms available with video conferencing, as well as maybe a couple of 10-key calculators and a fax machine for scanning. While this may seem like you're trying to hold on to the past, what you'll be accomplishing at a very low cost is helping each generation be as productive as possible with the tools that they work best with. As companies try to bridge the gap between the generations, employees may also benefit from brown bag lunch seminars, where millennials are recruited to discuss and review new tools that are available, and speakers from the traditional workforce transfer knowledge and organizational history. These kinds of activities benefit both sides by promoting and connecting the generations of past, present, and future. Undoubtedly, there will be some conflicts between the generations. When those arise, it's best to address them immediately. As with any conflict in the workplace, all parties should be given opportunities to say what's on their mind and to work together to resolve the issue. Ultimately, respect, results, and honesty are important to all generations, and HR policies should reflect this. So what does it take to win for organizations that have employees from multiple generations under one roof? mutual respect is essential to winning in the NetGen era. Organizations will need to foster this respect by helping everyone understand, trust, and respect those from different generations. Trust and integrity are values that must be shared across all levels of the organization, especially as NetGeners enter the workforce. Boomers and Gen Xers may be slow to adapt to these millennials entering their work environments, but in time, once these values are shared and trust is built, employees will be able to work more efficiently and cohesively as a team. As NetGeners and other members of different generations unite on group projects, these teams may take a while to develop solid working relationships. While some people believe millennials aren't good team players, ample research says otherwise. NetGeners are accustomed to working as peers to accomplish tasks as a team, perhaps even more than other generations. Hey, why do you think crowdsourcing is so popular? Transparency is also key to organizational success. As previously mentioned, as generations work together on projects, it's critical for all levels to be transparent with one another, even if ideas of transparency are different among, say, boomers than among millennials. With access to huge amounts of information, this transparency allows management to be informed from all levels of the business. But millennials will expect this information to flow both ways. This both enables and requires a constant dialogue between colleagues. To be successful, organizational managers will need to use the strengths of the generations in their workforce while simultaneously mitigating their weaknesses. In this presentation, we reviewed millennials' work-life behaviors and values and provided what we think are some useful recommendations for your HR organization. Millennials are a force to be reckoned with. As more members of the next generation enter the workforce, businesses will be required to adapt to them, just as the millennials must adapt to their new environment. As the traditional workforce evolves, organizations that help differing generations adapt to each other will find that they have a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Companies that manage this transition well will have a shot at becoming leaders in their industry. Thank you.